Hey friends, welcome to the Tennis and Bagels podcast, and hopefully you're already back into the regular time schedule of your sleep. If you're not from Japan or Australia, if you're from America, I feel sorry for you because I've been in the same boat. I was up for long nights, especially because, as some of you may know, I work at Tennis Canada and I was doing social for them. Lots of the gifts that you saw, I was taking those, and it was just a really fun experience, albeit just very, very tiring. Which is also one of the reasons why I sadly had to miss on the final of the women's tournament. I just needed to sleep. But yeah, if you follow that, like, congratulations to you. You're really a big tennis fan for like staying up like all night and still have stuff to do in the morning. I know Owen and Vansh, you two had your personal stories of personal horror stories, if you will, with the scheduling.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Vansh, I don't know about you, but I did 3 all-nighters over the course of the tournament. I think all of them were on weekdays, so I would end up going to classes and then immediately after taking these long naps. Like one day I took a nap from noon until 7 p.m. and then just woke up and watched this all night. And it was great. I can't wait for next year, honestly.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't even regret it either. I pulled off like 2 or 3 all-nighters. I stayed up. I watched Felix push Medvedev in the quarters, and I think I went to bed at around 6 a.m. I just didn't even care. Yeah. And I had a class at like 9. It was insane. I took naps. I pulled an all-nighter for the final, but you know what? Don't even regret it. I think what this tournament shows is that there was just so many amazing matches, like all throughout the 2 weeks, that I feel like tennis is so much bigger than, 1 or 2, 3 or 4 or 5 legends.
Yeah.
And so it just goes to show that, tennis will keep on giving. So I really like it.
There's just a very specific feeling about sitting on your table at night and then all of a sudden just look up like to the window and you see the sun rising. It's just like, man, that happened. I'm still unsure whether if it's a good feeling or a bad feeling, but it's something along those lines.
Yeah,
right?
And it's fun to share that with all the tennis fans as well. Like a match finishes and Twitter just explodes and you're tweeting like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. And then you all just go about your day and do it again in 24 hours. And it's so much fun.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I guess Vansh really said it extremely well. Like, tennis is so much bigger than just 2 or 3 guys, which is great because honestly, at the beginning of the tournament, we have 128 singles matches, like across men's and women's singles. If you don't count the doubles, if you're a fan of that and you find a way to watch it, and mixed doubles too, which is just too insane. You just can't. It's impossible to follow all this, but like we do all we can. So yeah, there's so much great matches, and I don't even know where to start. I guess we can just go on immediately over to the finals. Like, which one do you guys want to talk about first?
We can start with the women's. I thought it was a really entertaining final. Like, Andre, I'm not sure how much you were able to catch up with, but in the first set, Barty ended up winning comfortably, but Collins had moments where it was clear this match was going to be closer than any of Barty's previous ones this tournament. Like, she was taking Barty's cross-court slice and clocking some backhand winners off of it. And then the second set, Collins was up 5-1 and served for the second set at 5-3, 30 love. And so that was an immensely dramatic set at the end. And it had a really electric finish in the tiebreak. I thought it was a really fun final.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I know from watching Collins and Barty, like I haven't watched anything of the final, unfortunately, only a couple of shots here and there. And I checked out the tweets in the morning, like a few of them were still trending. So I know how close this match was. And I know that Collins is a fighter. And I know that she fights even when she's match point down, like 5-1 in the third set. Like, you cannot expect that she will be just down, even if you're Barty, like, core number 1 in the world. Like, even if you're Serena Williams in your peak, I think you should be careful with Collins, honestly. So, like, I was legitimately scared that, like, Barty might again suffer heartbreak. So, yeah. So I was kind of really happy when I saw that she won in the end, like, extremely deserved. The reaction just shows it all. But in terms of tennis, I will have to let you guys take the lead on that because I have no idea tactically or strategically how the match really went. So,
sure, yeah. I mean, Vansh, how did Barty win this match?
I mean, it was a tremendous contrast because here you have Collins, who hits what I think is one of the best backhands on the women's tour, probably the best at the moment. the way she can just take the ball from the middle of the court and just go inside in, inside out, just absolutely crush every single shot. And it was an interesting match because obviously Barty steamrolled through this entire tournament. She only lost 21 games and rode to the final. And, the whole theme of the 2 weeks was sort of who can deal with Ash Barty's slice backhand the best, who can find different ways to find the weakness of Barty, which is up high on the backhand, and who can stretch her out, because it's not easy because she has one of the best serves in women's tennis at 5'5", and she just hits all her spots and all the locations. You can mix so much variety on that shot, as well as obviously the slice really helps her sort of set up that forehand, and it's very good defensively and offensively as well. But I thought Collins was handling it really well, and was sort of forcing Barty into some more errors. And it was quite close right in the beginning as well, because I think a turning point in the first set was at 2-all. Ash Barty was breakpoint down, and she comes up with a really clutch inside in forehand winner that sort of hits the line. And from then on, she gets the break and sort of just goes through the first set 6-3 without too much trouble. And then in the second set is where you really see the crowd willing Barty on, but also Collins really putting up some heavy resistance and pushing Barty into a few more errors. Coming in, I believe she crushed a backhand cross court and then finished it with an inside in forehand approach shot, and then that was to get the break for 2-0 in the second set. And then she sort of held that advantage and broke again, and then Barty found herself 1-5 down, serving at 30-all. And from then, the way Barty played under serious pressure that she was under at that point, I feel like you sort of have a choice when you're down with 1-5 and 2 breaks in a second set like that. Like, either you can sort of just, let the set go and conserve your energy and focus all your attention on, okay, I'm going to start strong in the third. And instead she didn't. She really just stuck with her game plan, got more aggressive on her forehand, got more short balls that she was able to do damage with. And Collins suddenly felt the pressure of closing the set. So it was a very interesting dynamic. And then, of course, she plays a fantastic tiebreak, breaks twice, and then plays a fantastic tiebreak, I thought, to finish it off. It was just...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the things her forehands did from 1-5 down, I remember she hit a return winner, I think at 1-5, 15-all. And then in the 3-5 game, she was down 30-love. And at 30-love, she hits a return winner. And 30-15, I think she played maybe the most important point she played all tournament. She takes a forehand inside out. Collins hits a cross-court backhand, and Barty wheels into the doubles alley to try to get around it and hit another forehand and crushes it inside in. And I thought she missed it, but it was right on the baseline and there was no call, and she landed it right on the line. And then after that, she forced an error with the forehand to get a break point, and then she broke on the next point. And I mean, she did what all champions do, which is all the best champions do, which is trusting your strengths in the big moments. And she didn't have a particularly taxing route to the final. So I think this was not a match where players were kind of strategically budgeting their energy. She was going for it even at 1-5 down in the second set, and she made her shots. It was incredible. And then the match point as well. Collins hit a pretty good approach, and Barty passed her with a cross-court forehand, and then kind of just like howled at the heavens in celebration. She said afterwards,
best I've ever seen, the most emotive I've ever seen Barty after.
Yeah, it was incredible. She was so amped, and she said after she watched it back, and she's like, that doesn't seem like me. That's weird. But I mean, I loved it. The crowd was really into it. I will say, the crowd was rough on Collins. I think Collins was smart, and she had a different temperament from a lot of her other matches. She was much less emotive. Really didn't show much frustration or celebration. She celebrated some when she got leads in the second set, but besides that, I thought she was pretty contained. And I thought that was smart because the crowd was so pro Barty that doing anything to antagonize them, I think, is playing with fire, as Medvedev would find out in the men's final. And I was impressed with how contained Barty was as well. Even when she was down 1-5 in the second set, I don't think she showed frustration once. She was keeping herself contained. Looks like she trusted that she would figure things out, and she did.
You mean for Barty, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And I think one thing that, just kind of like putting this out there, and it's been a lot of lot of the topic on Twitter was the fact that Collins had to overcome so much hardship as well, like just to get into this final, like starting from like last year when she had like a surgery as well. And I think it just really just goes to show just how hard people are having to work. And I think it's really cool that we have like in social media just so much information about this and like just how people are sharing those, because like it makes those stories so inspiring, I guess. Like we all know Nadal, whom we're gonna talk about like in a minute, but yeah, just like real major props for Collins and like sticking to, you know, her guts and like just trying to actually like make her career even better. And honestly, as I said, like I was actually scared that Barty might lose, so I wouldn't be surprised if Collins ends up winning 1 or 2 Grand Slams like over the course of her career if she keeps her level as high as this. So who knows?
I think what's so amazing about Collins is, and you know, obviously the adversity that she's gone through is very real. I mean, she had endometriosis last year. She suffered tremendously. She was very open about her autoimmune, like her arthritis problems and her condition. And I think people really sort of appreciate that. She's one of those more refreshing people in the sport who sort of speaks her mind, but does it in this kind of assertive way. But it's really, really like refreshing to watch because she speaks her mind and she's very open, and at the same time she's quite funny as well. So it's a good mix. And she's one player who's like, you always ask the question in a Grand Slam final, is someone going to be awed by the occasion? With Collins, that was never even a question because she believes and backs herself so much in these moments, and you could just see it. And she was struggling throughout the week. Actually, I didn't even know this, but she mentioned this in her press conference that she'd been struggling with some lower back pain ever since the Clara Towson win. So, I mean, that's like 3 or 4 rounds of sort of cumulative pain, and then she felt like she couldn't rotate on some of her shots even in the final, and you know she was just going for it regardless. And she mentioned that she didn't sit down in a lot of the changeovers and just, you know, drank some water, ate, like, yeah, you know, got energized, and then just went to the next changeover. And it was quite a good week, I'd say, for fans to get to know Collins, maybe outside of tennis Twitter as well. So and she's now in the top 10, and her clothing sponsor actually expired, so I'm pretty sure she won't have any problems with that after getting to the Australian final here.
Yeah, I mean, brands better be getting on that. Yeah, I was also really impressed with Collins. I thought, like you said, Vansh, she was not awed by the occasion at all. I thought she played a remarkably composed first major final. She clearly went in with a plan. I thought stuck to it pretty well. And she handed Barty her toughest test all tournament.
And the crowd, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd was rough. I mean, at 5-3, 30 all in the second set, Barty hit a really aggressive forehand, and I don't think Collins would have gotten it back, but the crowd started yelling as she was going to make the return. And so she had like a brief chat with the umpire about that. But like even that didn't really rattle her. She looked like it was a legit complaint. She made her point succinctly and then went on and played the next point. And I mean, I think a lot of players, like Medvedev, would have completely lost it. And she didn't. She stayed in the moment and tried as hard as she could. And I'm not sure if I would bet on her to win a major, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised by it. And as for Barty, I'm like, I mean, the sky's the limit now, isn't it? Like, she can win on any surface. I think this is the most pressure she's ever faced, like to win her home major, and she did it without dropping a set. So now I'm like, is she just going to be like pressure proof now? Like, I don't see her being awed by any occasion ever again. And she's the best player in the world on all surfaces. So like, what's it going to take to beat her? You know, I can't wait to see like what she does this year, because I think she could win multiple more majors.
I think her coach even said before her semifinal match that there's a lot of girls who are just trying to practice their slice just a day before they play her.
Yeah.
And it's he sort of compared it to like cramming for an exam, you know, because it's just not something that a lot of players on the WTA ever face. I mean, there's just not many players who use slice. Very few do. I mean, Sarah Tsitsipas, Tormo, one of them, maybe Victoria Golubic, and you know, maybe 2 or 3 others, but those aren't players you normally face very, very often.
Right. And Barty's is also just better than all of those. Like it knifes more. She can hit it anywhere.
She can hit passing shots of the backhand slice.
I mean, it's just such a joke.
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree that it's a very unique shot, and players need to prep for it more. But for me, what the more remarkable shot for her is the serve. Like, I think her serve might be like it's probably one of the best shots in tennis history. I mean, she's 5'5". She's the shortest player in the top 30. Maybe like the top 50. I stopped looking up player heights once I got to 30. And she like serves better than all of them. I mean, her motion is technically perfect. Like, she's short and she serves so incredibly well. I mean, there are players half a foot taller than her who can exploit more angles, who should be able to get more speed, and Barty serves better than them. It's incredible. Like that. Yeah, and I think the slice, because it's so unique, gets a lot of press, but I think the serve is more special.
It is. I mean, she got only broken 3 times this whole tournament. Twice in the final, and then once against Anisimova at the start of the second set in the 4th round. I mean,
and that's wild. Like, she played some good returners and power players. Like, she played Keys and demolished her.
And especially if you come to think that a return of serve is probably one of the biggest characteristics of the WTA of like the past probably 10 to 15 years. Like, the only server, like the only couple of, you can even pinpoint like on the fingers of one hand, like big servers that like when they're on, they're good. And like some of them would be like Serena Williams, the obvious one. Then you have Venus Williams, who has a really powerful first serve. Maybe the second serve has a bit more of like an iffy, if you will. And then you could say maybe Sabine Lisicki, when she's on, she can serve well too, but she was never really a player that consistent to make that work for herself. And I don't know, I think it's just like breaking the status quo, like for Barty, like in the tennis games, just like, what are people not doing that I can do that is gonna just like throw everyone off? And like you take, for example, wins from players like Bianca Andreescu as well, who was really big on slicing forehand and backhand, and then like just Barty just probably just made it like a little bit more of like part of her game plan in a sense, to just game style. And I think it's just really awesome to see just how the fact that she only got broken like how would you say, like 3 times during the tournament? That's pretty ridiculous.
Just so in control of that shot.
Some people hold serve 3 times like during a entire so I feel like this for me is just like really just the idea that if players want to compete more against her and like compete for the future of women's tennis, they do need to develop those 2 shots much better than it is right now. And it's great that Barty is 5'5", because it really sends a message to everyone, every player out there, just like, hey, you don't need to be 6 foot to like hit big serves, you know. You don't need to,
no matter who you are, your serve can get better. I mean, it's just amazing what she's doing. I mean, I think Pliskova is another one who serves really well, and they played in the Wimbledon final last year, and Barty outserved her. Like her numbers were better. It was amazing. And I think players are going to have to change the way they play, because I'm trying to think of, if Barty plays her best, who can beat her. I feel like short of Osaka peaking on a hard court, I feel like it's on Barty's racket, like in any matchup.
Yeah, it really sort of just depends on her. I mean, even at the US Open, I think we got sort of that one match against Shelby Rogers, where I thought actually Rogers did something that was very interesting in the end of that match. She just started moonballing and just changed up the rhythm and just started hitting high balls deep to her backhand, and that seemed to work for a bit. But I don't know how sustainable that really is, and unless you can really take the power out of her hand, like a peak Osaka or like a redlining Badosa, like I just don't know how do you get that to work. And that's what I think women's tennis going forward, it could really use a rivalry like Osaka Barty, because that's one match that like I watched. I think Barty has won 11 over the last 13 finals, and the one final she did lose was against Osaka in Beijing, which was a WTA 1000 in 2019. So it's been a while since they played, but really that's the only player that I see at her very best who can stop Barty. Like,
I mean,
on a hard court.
And it's not that there aren't flaws in Barty's game, but she protects them so well. I mean, it's no secret that her topspin backhand is problematic, but she hides that I mean, like she hides that more successfully than anyone since, I don't know, maybe like a young Federer has like protected his backhand.
I mean, that's
because
sort of how I see Barty right now. I sort of see her as like a 2004 Roger Federer. Like,
right, because she can slice the hell out of that wing and keep opponents off balance.
was left-handed right now.
And so it's like, and like, yeah, her topspin backhand is bad, but like, how many realistically are you going to be able to make her hit in a match? Like, I don't know, 5, 10, 15. Like, I think the one thing maybe Collins could have done more is like approach to the backhand more. Because like you said, Andre, Barty can hit slice passes, but it's really low percentage. Like, it's not something she's going to be able to do all the time, and her topspin passes are very iffy. So I think that's a way you can force the issue a little bit. But yeah, and Barty can run around and hit her forehand from the ad side. Like, it's extremely hard to exploit that weakness, even though it's a fairly big one.
Yeah, the court craft is just so good. Like in that area, she can lob you. She can hit it low. She can hit a low drop volley with her slice. She can just kind of like push over the backhand side, but just set up her next shot. It's really hard to exploit. Like what you say.
I think it's, in a sense, is the same problem that players faced against Roger, right? Like, how can I wrestle this rally from your hands, right? It's just like, if you can't do this, like, look what players had to develop to do that. Like, you have Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal, who's probably the best two defenders in the history of the game, and they went on to become probably bigger than Federer, really. Like in tennis,
which we'll get to.
In tennis, and I'm not talking about like in general. Like, this is a media conversation. It doesn't matter right now, but like, like it takes that much to beat players like that. And back to just like Australian Open in context, I think it was something that probably is going to release a lot of pressure from her, like going into other tournaments and back into Australia next year. I think if she hasn't, she obviously has already proven that she is a very deserving world number one, but like, just how much more is she going to dominate after this is a big question. And it's just so refreshing to see her holding that trophy, honestly. Like, I can't wait for her to win the US Open, just complete the entire that card of like Grand Slams. I think it's great.
Right. I mean, like you were saying, now that she's achieved this, I mean, like, what is there next? Because Wimbledon was her childhood dream, did that. She's just won her home major. And so now I feel like if she has solid goals, it can just be like, win everywhere as much as possible. Like, I mean, she's got so many weeks at number one already. I mean, there's the career slam, which I think she'll get, even though her coach kind of had that weird quote about players like her not being able to win with the current balls. I thought that was weird, and I don't really agree with it. But I mean, like, besides winning the US Open, I feel like she can just be like, I want to win as many as I can and build as huge of a legacy as I can. And I think she can go a long way.
I think she can, I mean, she has a lot of potential at the US Open. She's been to the fourth round twice. And she could definitely win there. Like, I don't see why not. I mean, it's probably the hardest for her to win at the end of the year after having so much success. And like the conditions maybe, but like, I don't know. The quote about the balls, that was more just, taking some of the pressure off, I think, more than anything else. So, I mean, if there was one player on the WTA who could go on and do sort of a calendar slam kind of thing like Djokovic, absolutely not saying she's going to do it. But like, if there was, you'd probably back her just because she's so versatile.
Yeah, I mean, I could see her defending either or both of Roland Garros and Wimbledon. Like, I think maybe betting that she'll win 3 this year is a lot, but I think I think she will win one of the next 3 as well.
Yeah,
I
do want to see. Obviously, we are 100% getting ahead of ourselves here, but like, hello, recency bias. But like, going to Roland Garros, I want to see players who we backed up a lot in this tournament itself, and were dark horses for a lot of people, like Kontaveit and Krejcikova, who probably played one of the best matches of the year. Cannot not remember that match is ridiculous back in, I think, Sydney. And when Krejcikova is going back to Roland Garros, I really want to see like what can happen, like in terms of whether like they both meet in the final. Like, I think it would be really interesting, and I think there will be a lot of if something like this were to happen, I think it would be like a really good storyline. Like, there would be a lot of narrative and backstory behind that final if this were to happen. So I think it'd be really good for tennis to see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main takeaways I had from this Australian Open on the women's side is like there's sort of three players right now that you can sort of bank to get to the second week of all of these majors, and that would be Barty, Swiatek, and Krejcikova. It really seems like, I mean, especially Krejcikova, she's made quarters of US Open, quarters here, and fourth round of Wimbledon, and Swiatek has now made semis of Australia as well. And even though she was thoroughly outclassed in the semifinal and her second serve was quite exposed by Collins and some of the weaknesses like she has on a fast court, she's consistent enough to put herself in these situations and now finally start winning matches from a set down, or when she's facing adversity, like she was, for example, against Kanepi in the quarters here, and found herself a set and a breakdown.
Yeah, so that was a remarkable one.
Yeah, so it's just nice to see players sort of back up the results and live up to their seeding, and I think we're starting to see that a bit more on the women's side with some of these top 10 players.
And I think another amazing thing is that Swiatek is only 20, and she's already really well-rounded major champion,
and it feels like she's been there for like 5 years already.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was writing about her, and in the middle I was like, it's important to remind ourselves, like, she is only 20. Like, imagine when she's 24 and she knows all there is to know about playing on the tour. She could be incredibly dominant. I'm really excited to see that. I think I was thinking back to our podcast before the tournament, and I thought it was kind of funny that when we were talking about Barty, I was just kind of at a loss of words, and I was like, she's just so good. And so I'm glad that she won the tournament and backs that up, because she is so good. Absolutely fantastic player.
I think I picked Barty against Kontaveit in the final.
Yeah, I don't remember who. I think I went big on Halep. I think I might have said it would be Barty and Halep.
But to be perfectly honest, Halep had a perfect week until she lost. But yeah, she was doing really well, honestly. Like, I was really impressed. I was like, maybe she's gonna make her run for it. Like,
I'll tell you, that match hurt me against Cornet. I mean, it was amazing. Cornet is a spectacular player. She showed amazing resilience to finally break the fourth round curse. But I was like, I really wanted Halep to do well after 2018, when she got so close and played so well. And she was wearing like a very similar outfit to the one she wore in 2018. And she was on Rod Laver again, playing another exhausting attritional match, and saved match points and then lost again. I'm like, of course, this is just what happens. But I will admit, it bums me out a little bit. So I hope eventually she gets some good luck there.
Yeah, you guys did way better than me in the predictions. I mean, the only thing I got right was Swiatek getting to the semis. Everything else was way off. I went really big on Badosa because of her success the week before, but I didn't quite realize how much of a toll it took physically, and I wasn't expecting a super amazing performance from Keys, who impressed me quite a bit in beating Krejcikova and Badosa the way she did, and backing up her and getting all the way to the semis. So that was another good story in the fortnight.
Yeah, you actually did put a lot of on Keys. You're just really saying, I don't know, Keys, she's doing well, and you just didn't feel like you had enough. You weren't brave enough to bank on her, honestly. But you kind of called the shot like a little bit.
I mean, I don't think Badosa had a disappointing tournament at all, though, because Kostyuk played an incredible match. And I think I don't really think Badosa could have done much to recover for the next round. I mean, I picked her in the Marie Musings prediction game, and I was on a call with Scott when Keys was just demolishing her. And I was like, oh no, I think maybe Badosa could come back, because it took me a bit longer than everyone else to realize that she was physically not quite there. And he was making fun of me and tweeting about it. I was just like, come on, man. Like, I don't need the salt in the wound. But I still think she had quite a good tournament. Like, the way she fought was incredible. She played some great tennis, and I don't think I'll think any less of her chances going into the next major.
Yeah. And hopefully she'll have a good Roland Garros. She's a good clay court player, so
very good. Yeah.
And coming back to Cornet a bit, of course, like, she had like an amazing tournament, and like, she made people cry, which is always kind of cute. All the best for her. Like, at this point in her career, she was saying like it could even possibly be her last season from her words that she was speaking. So awesome. Like, I was even imagining, like, who knows, maybe a Cinderella story could be in the making and she wins it. And then like, she pulls up like this amazing quote about like, you guys who win slams, you're crazy, because it's so much effort that it takes to play 2 weeks. It feels like it's been a year that I've been playing this tournament. And after this, and in particular the match that Swiatek played against Kanepi, which is probably the match of the tournament. On the women's side, I don't know, maybe the second week.
I might fight you on that. I thought
Okay,
I thought it was really competitive and dramatic, but I thought the quality was kind of spotty.
Okay, right.
I think the best match point, absolutely.
Yeah,
that was.
But yeah, in terms of that, I just think like coming back to best of 5 and best of 3. I don't even know if it lacks on the women's tennis like a best of 5, just to like, see this much drama, and just the best of 3 matches is doing pretty well, honestly. Like it's getting physical. Maybe you would like to see a trial of this. Like of course, like the men's side really showed us why best of 5 is amazing, with like great comebacks by Daniil Medvedev, almost great comebacks by Gael Monfils, Denis Shapovalov, and another great comeback by Nadal in the final, which was probably the most improbable one of all. But
Alcaraz got close as well in the third round.
Very, very true. That was a great match, by the way.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
He played a terrible tiebreak in the end, but he's only 18. So.
Yeah, I mean, an image from the tournament that's like one of the clearest for me is he actually won the first point of that tiebreak to get a mini break, and he steps up to serve at 1-0, and he's just kind of nodding. Like it's this incredibly cocky nod.
I remember
he
this.
Taps his head with his racket a little bit, and I'm like, this guy looks so confident that in that moment it seemed impossible to me that he would lose the match. And so when he did, I was kind of like, what just happened? Like I was so positive he was going to win. And I mean, he did fold a little bit in the end, but like, man, to have that much confidence at 18 when he's kind of like Swiatek, when he's like 23, 24, oh my God, he's going to be such a menacing opponent.
And he already looks menacing, to be fair. Like you see his arms, like dude's already gigantic.
He worked his entire spent his entire off season in the gym. Like that's all that's what he prioritized. And he didn't play any tournaments leading in, and we all thought, ooh, how's his form going to look? But actually that was a conscious decision by him and Juan Carlos Ferrero, which just shows you how forward thinking he is, and how how long term he's thinking, and like how good of a prospect he really is. But I thought Cornet, going back to that, was such a good story, because here she was being interviewed by Jelena Dokic, who was supposed to play her in 2009 had she beaten Daenerys Safina in the 4th round. And of course, we know what Dokic has, all the stuff she's gone through. She had a really abusive father, and she's suffered a lot, like emotionally and traumatically, like in her life. And so that interview that she did was really wholesome and heartwarming, and I think it moved a lot of people actually to tears. So that was just a phenomenal moment. And she it's stories like that I feel like really come through in the majors and really break through in a way you don't see on the regular tour. Because here you have Cornet, who's been playing these majors since 2006. This was her 63rd main draw of a major, and she'd never been to the quarterfinals. And she's a really good player. I mean, this player just beat Halep in a really physical match, and she backed that up by, I mean, you thought second round beating Muguruza, like that was a big upset, but you thought, okay, probably, it's going to quiet down and she'll maybe go down to Halep or lose in the 3rd round. And she actually kept that up. So it was, that was just one of the great stories on the women's side. But
yeah, I mean, that match was so brutal, those conditions. I mean, it was bad enough during the match. Cornet, she was ahead. She was up a set, and she asks the chair, can we close the roof? And I think the chair said no. I think Cornet had a quote where she was like, it's barbaric or something. And the chair was like reminding them, you only have 25 seconds between points. I'm just like, come on, close the freaking roof. Like this is crazy. There was a point where the ball was still in play and Halep hunched over because she was so exhausted. And then she won the point after that. It was the wildest stuff.
Worst possible conditions you can play in.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't apply the heat rule for that one. It was ridiculous.
I think they did after the second set was over, but even then, it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like right up against the line for a little bit, but not quite there. I mean, Halep, like, I really thought Halep had like survived that match because Cornet looked dominant and Halep looked exhausted, and then Halep kind of did that thing where she lives like right on the edge of the abyss and just looks completely shattered, but still manages to play amazing tennis. And then it looks like she was physically dominant and Cornet was shattered, but then Cornet recovered for the 3rd set. And I mean, Halep saved a match point with like, I think probably the shot of the tournament, like the ball, so she serves
frozen rope.
Yeah. Like, it's high to her backhand. She's running backwards. winner down the line. Like, how the hell did she do this? And then immediately just hunches over. Like, she did that when she was exhausted in the massive heat, running backwards off a high ball. It was crazy. I thought she might have pulled out the match.
I have a little bit of a thought about the roof, just because there were like rumors saying, like, circulating, I think, on Twitter, that like I think the Australian Open was already like they already exhausted all of their funds. And if I'm not mistaken, to close the roof, it costs like millions of dollars, because it's so much energy that you have to put into it. So just like that one little button that you press to close the roof, like it just exhausts like so much energy and like power, that like I feel like the Australian Open are just like, let's try and like live this tournament with as little like money spent as possible. I wouldn't imagine like the players probably eating like egg sandwiches for lunch, honestly, like, because it's ridiculous.
I had one of those for lunch.
It's like the story about like when the airport is like, if you take one olive out of the plate, you're saving millions of dollars a year. That's probably what they did. Is was like, let's just, instead of like 350 grams of rice, we're gonna just do 325. Let's just save money like that.
Note, like how good does Thailand look coming out of this tournament? Because here
God, dude, I was losing it when all the finalists were like, I mean, Tennis Australia, but especially Craig, like, you guys just do such a great job. And I was like, you're joking. Like, how? I mean, Rafa, after winning the match, Rafa like he hugs Craig tightly, like he was his long lost relative.
The players just love him because of what he does, like for like supporting them with anything that they really need, like throughout the tournament with physios, and like just he's always like there for the players. Mm-hmm. But honestly, that's probably what cost him a lot, is he's so there for the players that we know sort of the role that he kind of played in the first 2 weeks of this whole month. Yeah. So we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, we already got into that a lot.
He's like, I know he's done some great work, but like, man, he biffed it so badly before this tournament, and it was like everyone conveniently forgot.
It's just crazy, just because like it's a lot of uncertainty, and I want to give him just the benefit of the doubt that he probably thought everything was going to work out very well until it didn't, and then it's just like,
criminals think that though. Like,
it's just a bad mistake.
Exactly. It just feels like he probably had a plan in place, and everything seemed to be going well, and then like I feel like he just didn't count with the problematic Australian government immigration system, which is like, and obviously I don't want to get back into it, but like, I'm just happy that the matches of the tournament just made up for a lot of the tournament, to be fair.
Yes, I think the matches went as well as they possibly could have, in that they were entertaining, they were dramatic. We got two popular winners, and it, I think, almost completely took the focus off this debacle that preceded the tournament. Yeah. So should we segue into the men's final, which, well, maybe not one of the best matches ever, was one of the craziest and most dramatic, and most surprising as well. I mean, I don't think I talked to anyone who figured Nadal could win in the way he won. It was all like, if anyone was predicting Nadal at all.
There was winning in 5 sets. It was the most unlikely scenario out of everything that could have happened.
There was one tweet of a guy, I think it was Bastien Fachan, I think, on Twitter. He actually said that exactly. I actually had to look it up. Like, that, there's no way you tweeted that before the final.
I thought he was insane. I mean, so for me, the most remarkable thing about this match is the length. 5 hours and 24 minutes. This is the second longest match of Nadal's career. It's the longest match he's won. And this was after like a 41-minute first set, which means after that first set, the sets were like an average length of 70 minutes. I mean, that's as attritional as it gets. He not only lost the second set, he lost it in this really tiring way and choked a few leads. And I mean, I didn't think he would lose the third, like 6-1. I thought he would fight, and he did. But like, I was amazed he had anything left in the fourth. It was when he went off a break in the fourth that I was like, okay, now I think he could maybe win. But I just can't believe he had enough in the tank for that. I think he had no chance.
This match was sensational because it was like 2 matches almost. It's like you could start with the first match right from the first ball, and I mean, just the way it started with Nadal just barely holding on, like with every last drop of energy that he seemingly, it looked like he'd already been playing 5 hours right when it started. Yeah, because because of how comfortable Medvedev was in these baseline rallies, just massaging the ball, just maneuvering him around, just prepared to outlast Nadal, which is not something you most people have a game plan of doing, but Medvedev is one of the very few who can do it with his amazing shot tolerance and his just amazing consistency from the baseline. And he just has that ability, sort of this Djokovician way to sort of take advantage of Nadal's high balls, like those topspin. He was getting nothing on those topspin backhands in the first set. And even the slice wasn't working well for him. He was having to hold, it took him 8-10 minutes to hold his serve, the first two service games. And Medvedev was just cruising and putting the pressure back on, and he was getting so many free points. And, I think the conditions were quite hot. And we know what happened 2 rounds before when Nadal was struggling with the heat stroke. I mean, just the whole uncertainty of this entire 1 month for Nadal. I mean, 4 months ago, he had foot surgery. He didn't know if he was going to play. Then he gets COVID. And then you're thinking, okay, this is probably very unlikely. I mean, second Australian Open, who would dare to dream, right?
Right.
And then he wins the warm-up tournament, and you're thinking, okay, that's decent prep. But you thought, okay, quarters, semis, okay, he was pushed, but not really somebody who can really quite challenge him to the very hilt. And then you have Medvedev in the final, and then you have the way the first set plays out, pretty relatively comfortably, 6-2. And then even in the second set, I mean, Nadal started going to the slice a little bit more. He got a bit more aggressive. His serve was not even working in the first 2 sets. I mean, he was under 50%. It was like 50% first serve in.
To end the first set, he got broken to love twice in a row.
Just crazy, 8 points in a row.
It was, those first few service games, he was having to fight so hard. It was almost comically precarious. I mean, you guys remember those 2 points at 1-all, love 30 in the first set, where like Medvedev had a put away, went down the middle. Nadal like stuck his arm out at it, and the pass went in by like an inch. And then the second point, again, he was at Medvedev's mercy, and Medvedev hits it straight at him. It was like, and then as soon as that luck went away, he got broken at love. I mean, Vansh and I were talking before Andre got on the call about a point at 2-4 love 30, where Nadal hit a forehand down the line that hits the outside of the line. Like, I was surprised it was called in, and Medvedev just runs it down and slices it back. And just kind of provokes Nadal into a brain fart, bad drop shot, and then passes him.
I saw that. It was like this slice that stayed super low, close to the service line, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And it was like, when someone is defending that well, and someone says like, oh, you need to go for the lines. I'm like, I mean, here, that didn't even help, because Medvedev was even getting those back. Like, he was getting drawn into such long rallies. In the third game, they had a 26-shot rally. At the start of the second set, they had a 40-shot rally. I mean, it was such exhausting stuff. And since the narrative coming in was that Nadal was going to have to win economically, he looked screwed. And then, boy, did everything change in the third set.
I think it's...
just even going back to the second set, I really felt like, okay, he's not serving well. He's losing a lot of these long baseline exchanges. The slice isn't really working. He's not really able to hit close to the lines. But he still gave himself a chance. And so I thought, going into the third, there's still some hope here for this to be a somewhat of a competitive contest. I mean, he had 5-3 set point in the second set, and he had a 5-3 lead in the tiebreak. I mean, and before that he was up 4-1, and Medvedev plays this amazing return game to break back. And in the tiebreak, I mean, I must say, Medvedev, the 4 points that he plays from 5-3 onwards, just crazy, unbelievable. I mean, that's like...
I think for me, like when I was watching this match, and like especially the first set, it kind of set a bit of the tone, and I was expecting Nadal to fight back, because it's Nadal, and if one thing is that Nadal is going to try to give himself a chance and like playing at least a couple points that are a little bit better, just to keep the opponent guessing and knowing that he's still there. But yeah, like for me, it's like Medvedev's shots were just ridiculous. Like they were flat, and they were just landing inches like from the baseline. And he was executing a plan that Djokovic was executing to perfection back in the days when Nadal was in his prime. And now Nadal is like way far from his prime. So I was like, there's no chance that Nadal is going to do anything about it, because Nadal's forehands were rushed. His slice was not effective. Like even his backhand was hitting it a little bit too passively for me, especially in the first 2 sets.
It was just floating. It wasn't. It was right in Medvedev's
and then like all of a sudden, I think it's in the third set, and like he's just started going a little bit more for this. Like it's probably started getting a few for it, and like by the fourth and fifth set, he was already like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it, because I don't care anymore. And on the Medvedev side, on the other hand, just as I think Vansh just said it perfectly, like his 2 matches, it just flipped. Medvedev's shots were just landing short. Nadal was having plenty of time to hit his forehand, like just wind up and like hit that ridiculous spin. And it feels like Medvedev was cramping. I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but like he did say in the final, he did say in the final against Djokovic in the U.S. Open that he was starting to cramp at the end. And I'm not sure if this is a problem that Medvedev will have to address if he was actually like feeling the heat, like especially like physically. Maybe he needs to bulk up just a little bit more. Maybe he's a little too skinny. He can outlast opponents, but like, can you keep outlasting opponents for like 6 hours? Like, because you might have to play a few of these. Like,
I think it's a good point you make, because actually that could explain some of the shot selection errors that he was making, especially in the 3rd and 4th set. I mean, we saw him go for a ridiculous amount of drop shots, which did not have a great success. Right. I mean, he hit 24 drop shots in total, I think, in the match, and only 2 were outright returns. So that just tells you, like, I mean, a lot of shots that, you know, he had Nadal right on the back foot, and rather than going for the backhand down the line, which he was doing so well in the first 2 sets. I mean, just that cross-court pattern that we know Djokovic loves to use, right? The backhand cross-court hard into the Nadal forehand and then open up the backhand down the line. I mean, that's what Medvedev was doing in the first 2 sets. And it just wasn't planning out that way. And I think Nadal making those wrinkles that he was making in the 2nd set, albeit not winning it, I think Nadal also felt like, how do I get the ball past this guy? And so he was working in his mind. The wheels were turning right in every single moment about how he can somehow problem solve his way out of this. Because, I mean, and then we saw what makes Nadal so great is that even when it looks like he's tired, even when it looks like he's running on fumes, even when it looks like Medvedev is tight, he just got so much more aggressive. I mean, the last 2 sets were about as good as Nadal can play. I mean, it was just supreme the way he was. I mean, and he still wasn't serving great, but he was playing so well from the with his backhand. He was ripping his backhand down the line.
I think that was the shot of the match. Like his backhand down the line was absurd. He was just hitting like flat bullets down the line from that side. Probably.
What was the shot that we had the gif that of Swiatek just kind of like completely surprised? Like, I forget. I think it was a forehand down the line, a pass
to break in the 5th, maybe. That was a crazy shot.
It was it definitely was like vintage Nadal at some point. The forehand that he was hitting, like the backhands, he was probably hitting better than a few of his 2007-8 matches. But like
But here's what I think also is that, like, you know, Nadal, a 25-year-old Nadal could have outlasted this guy.
Absolutely. No, I don't think this match would have lasted.
But I think what really showed is like what else he has in his toolkit.
Right.
Like the amount of things that he's perfected in his game the last 10 years. I mean, it is just insane. His forecourt game, his ability to finish points off and counterattack off of Medvedev's finishes, because Medvedev was doing a really poor job of finishing in this match. When he had opportunities, he was not playing aggressive enough with his midcourt forehands, not really doing too much, was forced to come in on a lot of shots that, you know, normally, I mean, he could get away with it and he could probably hit a decent volley, but he was just not confident in that short, when Nadal was hitting that short slice or bringing him in, or a lot of times he would hit his drop shot and then he would not follow it up to the net. He would start backing off. And the moment he started backing off and backpedaling back towards the baseline, you knew Nadal had him stranded. Because either he was going to hit a really fantastic redrop, or there was one point where he went for a drop shot and Nadal just had an easy down the line opening, and he just put it away. And it was just like, you know, his head was just scrambled at some points. Either that's a combination of, Nadal anticipating him probably going for the wrong shot selection, but also him probably feeling it physically. I mean, he knew also Medvedev also had quite a physical route to get to this final. He played 3.5 hours against Cressy. He played 5 hours against Felix. The first 2-3 sets against Tsitsipas were played at a fast rate, but still somewhat physical in some points. So it was just fascinating the way the whole thing was changed.
And I think Nadal might be the worst opponent to dip physically against, because not just because he's fit himself, but because so much of the game plan against him is to deny him time on the forehand and neutralize that shot. And when you start to get tired, your shot quality suffers, and that lets him really open up on that side, which means you have to run more. So as you get more tired, his shots are going to go closer to the lines, which is just a horrible combination. And I think that really showed itself early in the 5th when Nadal was winning every single rally. If Medvedev's serve came back, he was losing the point. I mean, there was a point at 2-all 30-15 on Medvedev's serve, and Nadal hits a good return. Like, not great, but good. And Medvedev hits this backhand to hit Nadal's forehand that had so much air under it. It looked like something I would hit. And of course, Nadal hit it for a winner. And it really felt like, the low trajectory of Medvedev's shots was gone. There was so much air under everything. And that's a death sentence against Nadal. Mm-hmm. And that was why I thought it was so weird that forehands down the line Nadal hit to break at 2-all. Because I was like, he's winning every rally. So clearly the play is like, keep the ball in between the lines and you'll win the point. And on one of the biggest points of the match, he aims right for the line and hits this absolute lottery ticket of a shot and made it.
Just obviously too good. That was...
Yeah. I think Mark Petchy said that is the best shot Nadal has ever hit. And I don't know if I agree with that, but I think it was one of the most important.
I think just to show how improbable this was, Mark Petchy also said at 2-3 love 40. I think this is the decisive point of the match.
Yeah. He was like,
I don't even blame him because I thought the same.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that point because it was 2-3 love 30. Nadal hits a huge serve and then he hits a smash and Medvedev lobs it over his head.
Yeah.
And then ends up hitting a backhand winner down the line. I mean, big point, but also the way he won it looks like just another reiteration that he could neutralize the best of Nadal's offense and then turn the tables on him.
Yeah. For me, wasn't there also an... Oh, wait, actually, go ahead, Andre.
Oh, go ahead, because you're talking about this game. I just want to mention something different.
I think while you brought that smash up, that Medvedev got back and he set up the 3 break points, I also remember there was this one smash in the in the fifth game of the fourth set at 2-all, which is where Nadal broke after the 7th. He broke on his 7th break chance, and there was this one smash that, I mean, my goodness me, did Medvedev really he did not put that ball away, and he had to go just run all the way back to the baseline. He just attempted this kamikaze smash. And
it was this baseline smash, and it just hit the top of the frame, and just that ball sails to space. I mean,
it was just shots like this sort of. It just really highlighted Medvedev, and he just needs to work on finishing points at net because you can't win against the best players without that hole in your game.
Yeah,
it was just exposed on big points.
I think this match it gave me flashbacks of so many of Nadal's matches in Australia. It gave me flashbacks from 2017, flashbacks from 2012, flashbacks from last year, when he missed this match against Tsitsipas and then he was all over. He missed one, I think is when he was serving for the match for the first time. He missed this match right into the net. He let the ball bounce and hits this match down the line right into the net.
Yep.
And you have to say this is definitely Nadal feeling the nerves of closing this match out, because there's no way Nadal would ever miss that. He didn't miss another one and he went on to win the match. But that one was this is the human side of Rafa showing.
Oh yeah.
And then I remember when he was ahead against Federer as well, in the 5th set against
he referenced 17. All of those matches afterward.
Yeah. He was ahead against Djokovic and hit as you said, he had an easy down the line pass. He had an easy down the line pass against Djokovic. He could have been I think 40-15
40-15
and he missed that, and then match changed completely. He also the last set, he was a little bit of a flashback to Shapoval's match when he broke to start the 5th set, and then he just kind of gave up on every single return game to just concentrate on, and he did that exact same thing, and then he got broken, which was the last twist in this match. I was this match is going to go to a tie break, and if it does, it's going to be amazing. I really wanted to see one, but at the same time, it's my gosh, this match has already given pretty much everything that he could have given at this point. But
I mean, can we talk about how ridiculous it is that Nadal won this match? Because not only physically did he last 2 hours longer than we thought, but he had moments like that in the 5th where it looks like it was going to get away from him again. He was up 3-2, 40-15, and then ended up having to save 3 break points in that game. He served for the match at 5-4, 30 love, and ended up getting broken. And then Medvedev was up 30-15.
Actually, I forget now. How did he get broken? He had a double fault.
Yeah, so 30 love,
he had 2
running forehand error. 30-15, double fault. 30 all, Medvedev hit a winner. And then 30-40, easy backhand into the net.
Easy backhand in the net, right. And he was definitely thinking about it.
He was smiling after he got broken. Like, he knew what just happened and how important it was. And he was like, and you could tell he was having the flashbacks. I mean, he dropped the F-bomb on Eurosport because he was having these flashbacks. And so I'm like, how did he break back? Because, I mean, I think this might have been the most important point of the match for me. When Medvedev is serving at 5-all in the fifth, he's 30-15. And so if he wins this point, he's probably going to hold serve. And then even if Nadal holds to get it into a tiebreak, thanks to Vansh for the stat, by the way, Nadal had not won a tiebreak against a top 10 player since the World's Tour Finals in 2019. I think if it had gone to a tiebreak...
11 in tiebreaks.
Yeah, I think if it had gone to a tiebreak, Nadal was going to lose. And so at 30-15, Medvedev hits a drop shot to Nadal's backhand side. Nadal runs it down and he hits his trademark cross-court flick. It limps over the net, and it's a winner. And that made it 30-all. And after that, there were a bunch of deuces, but Medvedev never had an ad. And Nadal broke on his third break point. And
then on that break point, I think Medvedev finally decided, okay, I'm going to unload on a forehand.
Yeah.
But he just overcooked it. Yeah. And it was, there was just no confidence anymore in the shot.
And it was amazing because I was watching and I was like, this is maybe as much luck as Nadal has ever had at the Australian Open. Like, he's fought, he's got himself in a winning position, he blew it, but for once, his opponent let him back in. Yeah. Like, usually when this happens, the opponent runs away with it, and it feels like his window, closes as fast as it opened. But here, he got another chance.
It was just perfect for him. It was just perfect that it had to go this way.
I was gonna say, like, there was no other way that this could happen to Nadal and his fans. Honestly, like, I feel like
he deserved it.
And honestly, like the celebration that Nadal had at the end, I stand that very much because I was really 100% expecting the classic, like, just kind of like throw it into the ground, like just kind of. I
wanted that,
and so I didn't want that because I was like, that's too cliche right now, and like what he did, just kind of like puts his hands like on his hips, just kind of like smiling, just kind of goes like doing like the sign with his head, and just I think that was so funny to me to say, just kind of like I think he was thinking as well in his head, like, do you guys even believe this? Like, can you guys even believe this happens? Like this, like what happened in my head.
Yeah, and the celebration showed that this one was different because he's won 21 now. And the only times he hasn't, besides this one, the only times he hasn't fallen to the ground have been after like blowout major finals. And you can tell it's because he doesn't want to like disrespect his opponent. And this one, I thought for all money, he was going to like fall to the ground and lose it like he did after the 2019 US Open. But yeah, he was just like in delirious, euphoric shock. And yeah, I think, I mean, holding to love in the last game impressed me. I mean, there was this moment at 30 love when I was like, okay, he needs to win this point, because if he loses this point and it's 30-15, he's going to get flashbacks to 5-4, and then maybe he gets broken again. And he hit an ace, and at
just the start of the match, by the way.
Right. And I went back to watch it because he kind of reacted with like this fist pump, but it was like it was almost like a weak fist pump, and he was kind of
very reserved,
yeah, and it was like it was written in his face, like, oh my god, I'm still fighting, but I'm so tired, and I'm so glad that now I'm like assured victory at 40 love. Like it felt like he was near his limit, and so I went back to rewatch it because I wanted to write about that reaction, and I noticed that serve was a let. The thing beeps.
Oh yeah.
And no one noticed. Nadal didn't notice, Medvedev didn't notice, umpire didn't notice. It was an ace. I was like, that was a big deal. Like, that was a huge point. And it was a let and no one noticed. What the hell is that?
Yeah, this is crazy because like in the era of everything electronic, to have this happen, it just feels like I'm watching 1980 McEnroe versus Bjorn Borg. Like this is definitely what he feels like. This is.
Yeah. Well, another crazy thing is it happened on a set point of a Venus Serena Wimbledon final as well. First set, Serena hits an ace out wide. It's a let. The umpire even called it, but no one heard, and they walked off the court, and the umpire didn't say anything.
Are you serious?
Just let it happen. And I mean. And I went back to watch it, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like how?"
Yeah. How? This is one of the things that I kind of have to agree with. When Medvedev was like talking to the umpire at some point, just like step up, because I feel like the umpire is a little too muted in tennis lately. Just there's a bit too much of star power, and I feel like tennis kind of needs to get back on his feet again. Just the umpire needs to do something other than just call the score. And correctly, by the way, because there were cases in which the umpire just called it entirely wrong.
I mean, so I think so too. But
the crowd
I mean,
is screaming, and and he doesn't quite have a view of like everything around him. Yeah. And so I feel like if there were like some more officials like around the stadium, they could pick some of these things up. Like, for example, the coaching stuff or like the things behind where the umpire is sitting. It would just make things so much more efficient and better. And just like controlling the crowd in this kind of environment. I mean, it's just because the crowd was like 95% pulling for Nadal. Like it was just
and I mean, some obscene things were said. There's a clip where someone yells at Medvedev, "Go back to Russia."
Xenophobia comments.
Xenophobic. It's terrible.
Yeah.
You should be ejected immediately for that sort of thing.
You can have all your views on politics and stuff like that. There is obviously like a lot of things happening to Russia right now, but this is just low. Like you don't just make comments like that.
It's so BS. Like why would you say that? And like I think some people were saying after the match, like, I think I even said this before I saw the clip, like, maybe this is Medvedev. Like, because he had these quotes, and some people are saying maybe this is him stewing in a tough loss and he won't feel this way. But I feel like if he was referring to comments like that, I mean, he's well within his rights to say all of that and feel that way. I mean, and I thought for the most part, the umpire did an okay job. But another thing that drove me nuts was like giving Nadal a time violation at 5-4, 30-40. I'm like, man, this is one match where Nadal has done well with the clock. He's been on it all night, hasn't gone over time. And the first time you warn him is on break point when he's serving for one of the biggest matches of his career. Are you serious? Like, imagine if Nadal had lost the match after that and you could point to that time violation and like, oh man.
Yeah, because it's like he didn't even get a soft warning or anything like to even suggest that he was going over.
Well, I mean, the first one is a soft warning because you don't lose a serve. I'm just like, why would you call it for the first time at one of the most dramatic points in the match?
I think that the way that umpires call time violations are just wrong in general, because you immediately interrupt the service motion. Like you can just give him a violation like after the point is over. Wouldn't it be more efficient? Just like the guy's like picking up the balls, and maybe it would still disrupt him, but like it's not disrupting him like while he's on the routine to serve, which is like probably more important than just going to the towel. You know what I mean? So like I feel like just doing that is just almost the equivalent of like a player just going like, "Go Medvedev," like while he's like tossing the ball. Like it's just not great. So for all the things that are done with like the shot clock and time violations, I think that there's a lot of things to be studied about how to do this properly, because if there's a shot clock and there's a rule, maybe we need to apply it. But isn't there a better way to do it? I mean,
not to make a joke out of this whole thing, but like, what if that actually happened and he got a time violation and then a player was just like, "That's hindrance." Look at the umpire.
Can you imagine?
I feel like that would be the most hilarious thing ever.
This is Medvedev saying this, like, "That's hindrance." I can imagine. I mean, this is going to be on tennis TV.
The thing with this rule is like they either need to like call it all the time with appropriate discretion or never call it at all. Because I'm like, if that 30-40 point was really the first time in the entire match he went over time, I'm like, please just let it go. Come on. Like,
I think what drives me nuts about the shot clock is like it depends on when the umpire actually calls it.
Yeah.
When the umpire starts the clock. And so that's up to the umpire to decide. And then it's like you can take forever in between first and second serves. Mm-hmm. So I don't really see, and it's not like it's changed anything from when it was introduced. Like players are like going quicker or anything like that, Nadal included. And it's it can also like served its purpose.
Yeah, right. It can also take forever on if you hit a let. So this is never going to happen. But imagine a player just decides to practice hitting lets on his first.
Or you can toss the ball and catch it, and then it resets the clock. Which is what I would do if I felt pressure.
It's up to the returner to go at the server's pace, so you're just stuck at his mercy.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, which is so annoying. I don't know. I think the clock has resulted in a lot of useless discourse and very little useful discourse.
Yeah, I don't really know what I would do with the clock.
It's definitely not a topic that interests me at all. Like, just like whenever it comes up, I just you have to talk about it, but it's just one of those where
I think I would agree with you.
That was one of my biggest wishes going into the match. I was like, please, Nadal, like, go fast enough that this does not become an issue, because the
He's
US
always
Open,
on the edge, that's the thing.
Yeah, and so I was so glad that the first like 90% of the match nothing happened, because I was thinking back to the 2019 US Open final, and there Nadal gets the first warning in the first game and then loses a serve when he's down break point in the 5th set, and then loses a serve again when he is serving for the match. Like,
yeah, that's the first time serving for the match, and then he hits a double fault.
Right, or a single fault in that case.
Single fault, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I was just like, I hate it. But I was glad that didn't play a huge role in the end.
Yeah, it was.
Do you guys want to talk about how he stands in the GOAT debate now, or?
I mean, sure. Yeah.
I'm mostly just making a joke about it, by the way. If you don't want to be serious.
That was something that I was wondering about, because we have talked GOATs on this podcast. I mean, I said from before the tournament, even if Nadal wins, I think Djokovic is still better than him, and I stand by that. Even though I think the recency effect of Nadal winning the final in as epic fashion as he did makes it feel more important, because I think like the double career Grand Slam is amazing and huge, and I think this decisively puts him above Federer. But I think the fact that he's never beaten Djokovic at the Australian Open looms large for me. Djokovic has beaten him at the French Open, and so I think regarding Djokovic's like 150 extra weeks at number one, surface versatility, Nadal needs a gap of at least 2 or 3 majors to even his case. And so I think if he wins Roland Garros as well, and it's 22-20, then I'll think like, okay, maybe the 2 major gap can make up for those things. But I think right now, with it still so close in total count, Djokovic still has an edge for me. But I do think it's close. I do think it's a debate again. And I do think Federer is kind of out of it now.
That's a pretty good take. I mean, I would say like, it's pretty close now. I still put Djokovic ahead just because of his sheer weeks at number one. The surface versatility, like winning 2 of everything, is pretty big for Nadal now. I think it puts him ahead of Federer like decisively, because I always said like if they're tied on 20, and if Rafa wins one that's not Roland Garros and sort of does like another Australian Open or another Wimbledon, it's pretty tough to argue that you'd put Federer ahead of him, and especially given the head-to-heads. He has a losing record against both and all of those things. But I think it'll just continue to be a debate. But I still, it makes it a lot more interesting, because now the next major is the French, and he has a chance to pull ahead by 2, which is pretty big. But yeah, like it's an interesting debate, I guess.
I think it's become interesting, especially I guess from the Federer side, because now you have like not a 3-way anymore, but it's clearer and clearer that it's just a 2-way debate. But I think it's just great for Nadal and to finally go ahead into this race, because once Sampras was just taken out of the equation and just both Rafa Nadal and Djokovic overtook Sampras, it was just about all these 3, and then Federer just led this Grand Slam race specifically for just so long, and it kind of like, for me, it kind of closes a little bit of an era in my head. Just it closes the Federer era as the greatest of all time in my head, just because finally one of his biggest things is overtaken. Like his weeks at number one have been finally overtaken by Djokovic, but it just, the Grand Slam title just seems to mean a little bit more. And it feels like now that Nadal has taken that, Federer's career seems a lot closer to be over. And that's just something that I feel like it's interesting to think about, the big 3 surpassing each other in the later stages of their careers. I think it's just going to be a nice chapter to close this one, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Federer's had the record since Wimbledon 2009, so he held it for 12 and a half years.
Yeah, and it took him, it took Djokovic until March 2021 to get that weeks at number one record. So I guess it's pretty, he held it for quite a long time, and he sort of, in essence, showed what the bar is, and the other 2 have now surpassed it. So I guess
absolutely. And I think even though for us Djokovic is still the GOAT, I think it's kind of funny, because this is definitely, for me, the mainstream have regarded Nadal as the GOAT, even though I think he probably had a better case when he won the French in 2020 and Djokovic was still at 17. Because now, I mean, like, if you don't pay a lot of attention to head to head and stuff like that, it's so easy to regard Nadal as like the permanent second. And so I think people kind of always regarded him as the second behind Federer, and then more recently, maybe the second behind Djokovic. But the fact that he's now first in the major race forces people to evaluate his GOAT case a little bit more. And even though I don't think he cares, I think it's a nice tribute to how hard he's fought, because he has been second for a long time. Like, he might have broken through in 2005, but he didn't become number one until 2008. He's like, he tied the major record in 2020, but until now, he has never held it unopposed. I mean, neither has Djokovic, but I think it's kind of a given that he will at some point. I mean, maybe not anymore, but it did feel like that for a while. And so it felt less of a big deal for him. And so I think it's just a nice moment for Nadal. Like, it's kind of the message that, like, if you fight, if you like win matches you're not supposed to win, if you overcome obstacles, like, eventually, like, you will get records and stuff like that. And I think he deserves it. I don't know how long this will last. Like, I think Djokovic could very well win the French and tie it again, but I think it's nice that he has this moment.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I think it also should serve as motivation to Djokovic that this is what happens.
Right. I mean, this is the worst thing that could have possibly happened for him. I mean, down to the last detail, right? Because Nadal wins, Medvedev doesn't win, but he doesn't drop any points, so he's still going to be taking away number one soon. Nadal wins in epic enough fashion that the world is awash with GOAT talk now. And I mean, yeah, like, Novak could have stopped all of this. Nadal would not have beaten him in the semifinals. So
I think it is a really interesting debate. Like, it is close in a sense. Like, I think now, you look at it like you have these two players who have been dominant at their own slams.
Yeah.
With Nadal never having lost a French Open final, 13-0, and Djokovic 9-0 at the Australian Open. But then you kind of look everywhere else, and it's like they win half, they lose half. It's like 9-9 and 11-11, and it's like, I think it's somewhat interesting, because I mean, if Djokovic were to sneak a U.S. Open or another one, because I really feel like that's the slam where he's had the least amount of success in the finals, especially.
Yeah, at least like relative to his potential. I mean, it's weird because I feel like the U.S. Open is for Djokovic what the Australian Open is for Nadal. I feel like the French Open feels more justified because Nadal is always there as a gatekeeper, but the U.S. Open, it feels like there's really no reason why Djokovic hasn't won more. Yeah,
it's really quite confusing, actually, because it's like, here's the best hardcourt player, but then he's 9-9 in the hardcourt slam finals, and it's like, it couldn't be more opposite, because Australia is his turf, is his court. He comes fresh after a well-rested off season. It's like just perfect for him. Crowd support, conditions, everything. Then you get to the U.S. Open, the last major, tired, pressure, young guys breaking through, chaos in the draws. It's crazy.
Accidentally hitting lines people, getting injured, just playing losing matches he should have won. I mean, it's crazy because I think 2011 he should have lost, and then the next 3 years he probably should have won and lost all of them.
And I think it bodes well for Nadal that he did manage to sneak a U.S. Open when Djokovic was number one and he was in his prime, and sort of come back in that very important third set, and then steamrolls with the fourth.
Yeah, that's one of his biggest wins. I think I'll tell you what I'm excited for is just this rivalry. Like, now that, like, the French Open match last year was amazing, but I kind of thought it signaled a bit of a closing of a chapter because of the way Nadal faded physically at the end. I was like, I feel like this is the last match like this that we will get between these two. But after watching this, I'm like, if Nadal had enough for 5 hours and 24 minutes, like, yeah, like, let these two play at every tournament. I want to see them rematch at the French and then play again at Wimbledon and play again at the U.S. Open. I feel like the possibilities are kind of limitless because I think Djokovic hasn't faded physically much. Nadal has not faded physically as much as we thought. He's got momentum now. I think motivation is going to be as high as ever for Djokovic. I mean, this is the best rivalry of this era. So I think it's got a lot left after this tournament.
Yeah, definitely could get up to 60 plus matches between the two. I mean, it's possible. Like, Djokovic, you'd still think has some time left, and Nadal is as long as he keeps managing the foot pain, because it is something that he definitely has to manage. It's not something that, can be treated necessarily, but it's just about pain management. And I think the fact that he's given up, that he's put all of his efforts here is just remarkable. I do think he is genuine when he really says he's not worried about, how many slams he's winning and in relation to Djokovic and Federer, because I think it really was purely genuinely about giving himself a chance to compete and just be healthy and play tennis again. Because I think he really had serious doubts 2 months ago about if he can ever come back in the sport. I mean, he looked in a really bad way when we saw him in Washington when he came back.
Yeah, that was tough to watch.
Missing the Olympics. And, I think he'll sleep just fine at night, because just knowing that he squeezed basically every ounce of his potential.
Yes.
I think that's what that competition is what Nadal is really all about.
Yeah, and those nerves at the end of this final, those were Australian Open nerves. Those were not 21 nerves. I've really come to believe him when he says he doesn't care about that. And I think what drives it home for me is if he could change his tune now and say I have the most majors, I am the greatest. And a lot of people would not be able to argue with that, but he's still sticking to the size of the garden thing, and all his cliches, and it's boring and it makes no sense, but he clearly believes it. So I think at this point, you just have to accept it.
I think the best part is that he makes it make sense with the way he says it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just who he is and how he was raised.
Yeah. I mean,
just a heads up for the listeners, I had to do something, so you didn't hear my voice for a bit, but I'm just catching up with what the guys were discussing right now. So I think that his celebration at the end kind of makes me believe more, because he felt like he didn't believe that he won the Australian Open, not his 21st major, to be fair. But I think, it's probably his accent.
I mean, it is so interesting. I think people were talking about on a Twitter space that Courtney Wynn started, that it's interesting now that the guy who cares least about this record is the one who has it, at least for the moment. I wonder if that'll eventually play a role in what ends up happening when they retire, because I feel like Djokovic will only retire when I feel like he'll keep playing out of a desire to get these records and or keep them out of reach, and I feel like Nadal will keep playing more to have more matches like this Australian Open final. And I wonder if either one of those things will make one or both of them retire sooner or later. Because those two are kind of mirrors of each other, but they also have opposite philosophies at times. I was just talking to Vansh about how I want to see these two play a billion times this year now. Because now that Nadal has surprised me with his physical durability, I'm you two go play 5 sets at all the other majors. Keep it going,
we need another Roland Garros epic.
Yes,
probably another Wimbledon. It may be a US Open.
I mean, I really want them to rematch at the French Open, because I think
what we need Team back. We need Del Potro back.
We need Nadal to face Federer at the US Open at least once.
we need
Dominic
to just pull off a miracle. And just come back once again at Wimbledon and
I think
not be the last time.
One thing that Federer said, which is I think was really interesting, is that he said that he doesn't necessarily care whether his record of Grand Slams is broken, because he said, once I've held it. Once I had the most Grand Slams, and that nobody can ever take away from me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great. Honestly, I feel like he's also not necessarily. He probably is way over the hill on record and everything like that, because
we were just
40 years old, just trying to come back. Yeah. And I think Djokovic, he would be the one that would be the most devastated if he doesn't necessarily finish his career with this record in particular. I think if he finished tied with Nadal, it's one thing. If he finishes with less, I think it's going to break him a bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like same thing probably for Nadal. It's it wasn't something that he would. I can imagine Nadal saying something along the lines of it wasn't something that I was looking for particularly, but I did it, and it's something that I also can say that nobody can ever take away from me. I once held more majors than any man on earth.
He the way he seems to think is it's not something I sought out, but it's nice to have. You can't deny that it's nice. And it's kind of interesting as well that all of them have what ifs. I think for Federer, the what if is like if he wins more of those big points, he could have a huge lead. Nadal, like if he's not plagued by injuries, he could have a huge lead. And Djokovic, if I mean, his what ifs are, I mean, much more under his control than Nadal's at least. Like if he doesn't hit that ball, and if he gets 2 jabs in his arm, he could have a huge lead. I mean, it could be 22-19 right now. If he had not hit the ball and then played this one.
What really struck me is like Nadal said after this match that he never felt prepared physically to play matches like this, and that he thinks his body was sort of not ready. Right. And I was sort of worried for him when he lost that first set. I was like, this could be another annihilation like 2019 Australian Open, where he just can't get into the match because it's just a level too high. And it just makes it all the more remarkable that he found a way. He found a way again. 2-3 love 40 in the third set. Like it has to be one of his most satisfying victories for sure. After 2008 Wimbledon, 2009 Australian Open, I think, and all of his other Frenches, but this one is right up there just because there's no way he expected. He believed.
It's got to be the most improbable, right? Like the others, we at least knew what he was capable of, because 2008 Wimbledon, he had been building to for years. 2009 Australia felt less surprising because, I mean, I wasn't around to watch these live, but because 2008 Wimbledon had preceded it so recently. But this one, I mean, I'm just so amazed that that like he lasted this long, and that he won, because I think like I can't state enough that like his fighting spirit has like made for a lot of great matches, but it doesn't result in that many actual successful comebacks. Like there have been a lot of times when,
I mean, this was his first comeback from 2 sets to love down in 15 years.
15 years. Like there are so many times when he comes back.
This is the greatest fighter ever.
Yeah, ties it and then loses anyway. Like when I think of his fight, I think of him pushing his opponents to do crazy things. Like it results in a crazy level to beat him, but a lot of the time he still does lose. And here it was like kind of like I said earlier, finally his opponent gave him an in, and he took it.
That's probably a little bit off topic, but what do you think is more impressive, like this win by Nadal or Federer's win against Nadal in 2017? Because they're pretty similar in a lot of ways, right? Of course, like Federer was playing a player in Nadal who was also coming back from injury, while Nadal was playing a player who's probably never been fresher in his life, except for probably like a very short off season. But it's different than coming back from injury. So
I mean, I think it means sort of different things for both of them. For Federer, it was just spectacular because it ended a long drought of like 4.5 years of not winning a major, and him, I think he was out of the top 10. He was 17th in the world, playing in his 17th Australian Open, go at major number 17. And his draw, I mean, his path was so improbable because, I mean, he had like Berdych, then he had, I mean, Djokovic and Murray losing definitely, made things a little bit easier, but not by much at all.
Still a nightmare draw.
Still a nightmare of a draw. He had to go through 3 5-setters. But I think the difference is that his level of play by the third round, you just sort of, you knew like if he played like the way he did against Berdych in that third round match, he had a chance here. Whereas against Nadal, I think the draw had to clear up a bit, and you still had doubts going into the final because you didn't know if it was like deja vu again in the quarters against Shapovalov. He lost a set against Khachanov. He came back against Berrettini. That was a really good first 2 sets, like about as good as he can play, but then it's also a very good matchup. So you're just really not quite sure. And so the final was just so uncertain from that standpoint. Whereas Federer and Nadal, I mean, there was sort of I guess an expectancy that if it got tight, then Rafa would probably take advantage, given their head-to-head and given their history and Federer's tough route, even tougher than Nadal. So I think it's just the only similarity really is that they were the same age when they both accomplished this, and they both. It was like a miracle, and things had to align.
Yeah, I think there are some really interesting contrasts because I think Federer's whole tournament level unquestionably was better. I think before the final here, Nadal got away with like not really playing close to his best and not getting that close to losing anyway. But then I think the finals in isolation, I mean, this one was like 2 hours longer almost, is a monumental thing. So I think I think this final was more impressive. As a tournament, Federer's was probably more impressive. And I think it's also interesting to see, like, I think this one was also impressive because of the Australian Open being a house of horrors for Nadal. Like the Australian Open, Federer, I think, had won 4 times before 2017. So I think he had fewer mental demons.
Yeah.
Not that makes it more or less impressive, but I think, like, of all places that you could expect a comeback like this to happen at for Nadal, I think the Australian Open would be last on that list.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, and then I guess the last thing we could do is just, like for the young guys, for the guys 25 and under. I mean, once again, we have a slam where they were oh so close, also 5 centimeters away. But yet again, Djokovic and Nadal continue to show why they're just a league above, even at 10, 12 years older, outlasting their younger, fresher opponents. It is truly amazing.
I mean, like, how does this make any sense? Like, I thought it was clear that Medvedev had the mentality where he was not going to blow a lead like this. I thought this would never happen to him. I also thought it was not going to happen for Nadal, especially against world number 2 US Open champion, fit guy, mentally strong guy. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know.
For me, the explanation is, I guess, when they're both tired and their backs are against the wall, who would you pick more?
I would pick Nadal. He's he's the more tactically sound player, but still, like, 5 hours and 24 minutes at 35 years old against. I guess I think that the biggest difference, and not to say like, oh, because it's an all-time great, because like this is not an objective thing, like argument for it, but like I think it's just the sense that like mentally and emotionally these guys are different. Like, I mean, they developed something in their games and in their heads and some sort of confidence that allows them to pick plan A, plan B, plan C, and decide which one is better for which situation, and still fight and be able to be in that one point at that moment. And I think that's kind of what lacked from Medvedev. I think, of course, the crowd, as we discussed, like, was a little too much, but he didn't have that many excuses to blow up that lead. Seriously, like, of course, all credit to Nadal, but like Medvedev dropped his level significantly in specific points, and as you guys said, like, he failed to convert like a few points. He failed to finish points the right way, and that just kind of like opened up the door for Nadal. And I think it's that's probably a little bit of the difference between an all-time great and a generational great, because it's like maybe Medvedev is gonna go and win another 4 majors, like maybe 3, but where is this going to put him against Nadal? Like, at the end of their careers and at the end of everything, like, he was still going to look at it. And I think Vansh said it perfectly at this. And like, prime Nadal would have probably like smoked this guy. Like, seriously, like, it's just very, very difficult to, beat these guys. Just not necessarily because it's difficult to play against them, but just because it's just difficult to close them out. So
and the thing is that, like, it's a little bit different. Like with Djokovic, I notice he manages the match. He manages the best of 5 set match. He has his ups and downs. He lets a set go. He lets a few games go here and there, but when it really counts, he's dialed in and he goes in knockdown mode. Whereas Nadal, it's the same intensity every single point. There's just no sort of dip in his attitude and his intensity, and that makes you just, because that's what I really mean when he says that he's willing to suffer. You really see that, like, every single point he's willing to suffer. Whereas Medvedev, I felt like some of that energy came back at the 5th set. When he did break, he looked better physically to me than not quite in good shape, not in quite as good of a shape as Rafa did, but he definitely found that little bit extra in that 5th set. That means that it was there in the 3rd and 4th set, and it was just untapped, and he didn't quite use it. And that's where I feel like, and then that's when you started to see some of the shot selection go, and you started to notice like just how complete Nadal's game is in the forecourt area, just how he handles the drop shot, how he handles the slices, how he's so comfortable finishing points at the net, how he can go to plan B and C, not only go to it, but he knows with certain that he'll be able to execute it under pressure. Whereas Medvedev, he's having to change his technique, he's having to scramble. He's having to come up with 15 different kind of ways to finish points. That isn't your standard go-to Rafa play. You know, it's like he's having to come up with other ways apart from his serve to win points that gives him cheap offense. And you know, normally he can just purely just rely on his serve, or he can just he doesn't quite have enough ways to finish points. And I think it just showed in that moment. And just but I do think take nothing away from him, because I do still think he can win another 3 majors. Like, it's not, you know, especially on a hard court at this level, he's certainly a cut above everyone else on a hard court. So you'd figure definitely he's going to have many more chances. Yeah, but it's just tough for him to swallow that defeat.
Yeah, I think one of Nadal's most unique traits that the next gen are kind of lacking is just the pure willingness to change up his tactics in the middle of a match. Like, he's stubborn in that he believes in himself, but he's not stubborn enough that he thinks no matter what, his plan A is going to be good enough to get it done. Like, if something's not working, he will change. And I think the way he played in the 4th set, like, you know, bullets down the line, hitting winners, was almost unrecognizable compared to the way he played in the 1st, which was like more engaging in these long rallies. I didn't really feel like Medvedev was ever willing to do that. I thought that was a good point you made about suffering Vansh, and I think Gil Gross said that on 3 as well, that Medvedev couldn't really tap into that willingness to suffer in the middle of the match. And yeah, I mean, Nadal played this match like it was the last match of his career. I think Medvedev played well, very well at times, but he did not play this match like it was the last of his career. And that's really what you have to do, because I don't think it's a lack of talent with the next gens. Like, I don't think it's
lack of talent. I would say it's more, I think it's more things in their skill set that's missing. You know what I mean?
Feel like in a sense, in terms of Medvedev, like he obviously wouldn't play this match at 25 years old. Like, you don't necessarily play like it's the last match of your career, but he could have at least played it like as if it was his last Australian Open chance, you know, because that is very well a possibility. Look at just how long Nadal took to win another title in Australia. Look at the match that he played against Federer to win his first. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he was taking any of this for granted. It's like he was in the final, he was gonna try to make it happen. Of course, like Medvedev did try this, but like isn't probably like a something in the skill set. And to be just the fact that Nadal finished this match with a backhand volley, how much of a statement is in that for Nadal, right? Like, you're down, you're up match point. It was 40 love, to be fair, but like, so he would have a little bit more leeway to try things. But how many players wouldn't be like a match point and just say, I'm just going to play my A game because I just got to keep the ball in? Nadal just goes into the net and hits a volley and screws up Medvedev's chances of like winning his first Australian Open. So like,
and it was so emblematic of the way he's evolved as well. Like, the whole way he played that point, like that forehand and the volley, aggressive but high margin. There was no way he was going to miss either of them. Like, well within the lines, and yet far enough out of Medvedev's reach that they were going to be point winning shots. I mean, and I think for Medvedev, like this, I still think this was a choke. Like, you can say I don't think you can say he should have broken it 3-2 in the 3rd and that was the moment. I mean, like, are you saying that from 2 sets up and 3-all, Nadal was the favorite to win that match? Like, Medvedev had a billion.
We were still thinking, you know, he'll have a chance in the 4th, and he's still the favorite to win that.
And he did. He had he did not open the door for Nadal. He opened the door for Nadal and then pushed him through. Like,
what's so inexcusable for me is that he's making 80% of plus or more returns in the first 4 sets. And then in the 50, and then when he has 3 break chances at 3-2 in the 5th, he misses all those returns on his backhand on the ad side. Like, that's his bread and butter. Like, he can make that in his sleep. You know? So it's like, how do you explain that?
I mean, I think he should have won the 4th set. I mean, he had break points to get back on serve at 4-all. He had a game point at 2-all. I think if he wins that 2-all game, which he saved 6 break points, I think he probably wins the match. That puts him with a lot of momentum and 3 games away from the match. But like, so many chances, you could write a book about all these chances. It was kind of similar for Tsitsipas at the French Open last year. I mean, again, his moment was like up 2 sets had game points for like 2-all in the third. But I'm like, even getting broken there, you should still win 2 sets up and a breakdown. You should win that 99 out of 100 times.
Actually,
even
especially in her favorite
I really
surface,
didn't
right?
in that match. I mean, Tsitsipas never had a chance after that. It was like just
no, he didn't.
It was. I mean, he didn't even get to break point. It was just cruise control. But Medvedev here, I mean,
he stuck around, which was good.
It's one thing about like those two matches. It just shows a little bit like this particular generation. Like Medvedev kind of had a little bit of like a resurgence, as you were talking, like in the 5th set, and like he broke back and he failed to like hold his serve, but like got back to add, and he was fighting for that game. It was not like he choked that one out, or like he definitely felt a little bit more physically depleted at that point. But and the same for Tsitsipas, like, and he started playing some of his best tennis like in the last 2 games of that match. Like he saved a match point of the backhand down the line, which is freaking ridiculous. It's like, why haven't you been able to play this like for the past 2 sets where you were leading? It's like,
and you know,
something needs to, I don't think that something needs to change, but like there's just, it's a little telling. It's just like of the difference in which they approach probably their matches, and the reason, well, not the reason, but like how to lead properly, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, they're both battling some kind of demons. I mean, Medvedev's 5-set record isn't like thoroughly amazing. I mean, he beat Felix coming back from 2 sets to love down, but he usually wins all of his matches in straight sets. I mean, this was the first match at a major he's lost on a hard court after winning the first set. Like and you know, they come back and they win 5-setters all the time against, you know, other players, but there's just something about getting over the line against these 2 guys. And you know, Medvedev knows what's at stake. I mean, he got all the returns back on those 3 break points. He at least got them back.
Right.
So it's not like he wasn't in any of those points. Like, but you know, and then giving away the break back at 5-all, and you can point to many chances, but it's just yet another thing of like, they'll just have to live and learn.
Yeah.
And then eventually they get over the line. And I mean, Medvedev does have a major, and he did back it up here.
He does, and he's still the guy in the next gen. But like, one of them needs to win a close match in a major final against these guys. Like, do you? That's really
the next step, is doing it in a major final against the big 3.
Like when they're playing well. I mean, and like, do you
honestly,
really want?
Yeah. I feel like their chances are getting slimmer, because I feel like if it's not this year, like next year, they won't. I don't think Djokovic and Nadal will be reaching that many finals in Grand Slams. Like, yeah, Nadal did reach the Australia. You don't know how long they will last anymore. Like every year that comes along, every season is like, is this the one? Like Federer is playing at 40, but like he's technically just in the ranking systems, but like it's not necessarily like there anymore. Yeah. So yeah, I think to their advantage, and they do still have age on their side. Like Medvedev is probably a solid 10 years still of like high level playing. Tsitsipas is probably like 13 still.
Who knows? I mean,
Medvedev said he isn't going to want to play past 30. So who knows if that holds up.
Well, he still has chances to change his mind.
Emotional in the moment kind of thing, you know.
Maybe, but I think it's also easy to take for granted and say like 35 is the new like 25, but like, yes, but only for the big 3, you know. I mean, I think it's important to remember these people are different, a different breed. I mean, and I think
I don't think we should be comparing them all the time, like, you know, to that status, because this is truly once in a million generation. Like, this is not these kind of 3. We're never going to see champions like that, at least in our immediate future. Like, it's just,
I don't see it happening ever again, honestly. And I think, but all the same, I think the next gen, there's some time pressure here. I think if Nadal and Djokovic continue to win everything until they get too old that they just decide to retire when they're still on top, like, how is that going to feel as a next gen? Like, I was not good enough. I needed the guys who were better than me to get so old that they couldn't play anymore, and then finally I was able to win. I don't think anyone wants to feel that. Like, I think you need to, and I think Team even talks about this. He was like, we want to beat these guys while they're still here. Like, time's running out, you know. I think you could argue that they're getting more dominant. Like, Djokovic and Nadal are winning majors on their worst surfaces now. Like, something needs to change. I
mean, there's a gap in best of 5.
And to be fair, it's something that I don't even know if something needs to change. I've just, as you said, like, it's a once in a million situation. It's like, maybe nothing can change about it. Like, maybe this is just the way it is. And by like 40 years time, when we're going on interviews with like Tsitsipas and Medvedev, they're just going to be like, yeah, they were just that good. I just couldn't beat them. It's just because they were who they were that we just had to wait on them to retire so that we couldn't beat them, even though we got close. They were just a little bit ahead that they just could pull it. The wins against us.
At the end of the day, as long as you max out your career, you do what you can control, you stay as injury free as you can, and you keep the motivation burning. I mean, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
I mean, Tsitsipas, for example, he's still 2.5 full years younger than Medvedev is.
Right.
And it's very easy to compare them and all of this, but it does happen, and things happen. You get injured, you have to come back. There's so many ups and downs.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, look at Thiem, for example, this year. We all thought this was going to be his season, and he's not even been able to play most of it. So
I thought 2021 would be his season.
Yeah.
But I do have a question. For Nadal and Djokovic, what does the count look like at the end of this year? And let's assume that Djokovic can play at the next 3 majors.
If he can play, then I give Nadal a French, I give Djokovic Wimbledon, and I give one of the next gen the US Open.
I would say that too.
It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Like it's the first 2 majors are going to be tough for these guys to win as long as these 2 guys are around. I mean, I'm never believing Nadal again when he says I'm not, I'm not physically ready for this tournament or something like that, because he's reminding me now of the guy in school who's like, I never study, I never do any prep.
And then magically ends up days. Yeah.
I'm so underprepared, and then he gets 100. Like it's I mean, I'm just making fun, like in terms of how other players might perceive it. It's like you can never count these guys out. That's what I'm trying to prove.
Right. I mean, all the same though, it did feel like Nadal played this match in a way that like he can't play every match. Like something I was wondering was like, even though Nadal, we say he plays every match like it's his last, I did wonder if he had like an extra gear for like a final. And I feel like he did, but I feel like he could not have played other matches like this on the way to the final. I feel like in a way this is maybe almost not reproducible, at least not for every match.
Yeah. And he did say, when he was asked about his foot, he said he felt no pain,
which is
so
huge.
I mean, I think that is huge. I mean, that goes to show that some of the stuff in the first 2 sets were just about figuring Medvedev out, figuring out this guy. Maybe it was just the nerves, maybe it was just the occasion, but when he really did get going, it was really all about the tennis at the end of the day. So I think that's really good.
That's good to hear. And it's back to Owen's question about the slam distribution, but like it would be really curious and interesting to see. Like Djokovic has won almost a calendar Grand Slam last year, and I would give the exact same answer as Vansh did. And how crazy it is that like Nadal finishes this year with 2 Grand Slam, Djokovic finishes with 1, and I think that because of there's a lot of things to consider outside of tennis, of course, for Djokovic's winning tally, which is sad, seriously, but that he's letting something like this get in the way. But of course, like it's his own mind, so like we can't really change that. And I don't think there's many coaches that would be able to do that either. But like
I mean, you would hope after this,
I would imagine that like he would at least go after the US Open one more time, like after losing this hardcore slam. So
I have certain beliefs. I don't believe in taking the vaccine for myself, but I hate it. I had to get surgery. I did that. That wasn't in my belief system either. So if I can do that, why don't I just take one for me and for the team, for everyone else, and just get the jab. I mean, you would think he would think like that, but you just don't know. And knowing him, there's no guarantee he'll do it. So
I mean, I'll tell you, if this tournament won't make him get it, no kind of tennis result will. True. I mean, this went as badly for him as it could have, and so if this doesn't get him to do it, then he's lost.
What I will say is that it's at least it's not like a given, like pencil it in, Delver from the French or like. I do think there are still some guys who are pushing on, suddenly Tsitsipas becomes a much bigger factor when the clay comes around. His return of serve weakness is hidden a lot more. And then you have, if Thiem suddenly comes back, you have a few 2 or 3 other players, but really it's so hard to bet against Djokovic and Nadal. Like it's just so hard.
I mean, I think after this, Nadal is starting to feel like a monster favorite for the French again, because I feel like if he doesn't have the foot pain, like, and if he can run for a while, then like what's going to happen? Like maybe Djokovic goes God mode again and beats him, but like is anyone else going to do it? I can't possibly see it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see when Clay comes back around. It'll be interesting to see like what Nadal's schedule going to look like as well up to then. And I seriously doubt that he's going to be playing both Miami and Indian Wells. He might play one or the other. But yeah, like we'll just have to kind of like wait and see. And obviously with the whole Djokovic situation, just wait and see like whatever he decides to do, because it seems just more and more likely that every tournament is going to be requiring that, that thing and that protocol. And it's going to be a little bit harder for people to defend, to accuse Australia specifically of that, because well, if the whole world is doing this, it means that it's not just a thing against Djokovic, which it probably wasn't in the first place. But yeah, I guess like without getting back into this whole fiasco again, you can listen to that episode that Vansh and Owen recorded early on.
So totally, because it was a whole week worth of events afterwards. But yeah, that's okay. I mean, we've probably heard it enough, and I don't think
absolutely. It's just nice to talk about tennis, and yeah. I mean, I think
that was good.
I think this was a really fun tournament. Like I was able to watch more of this than any other Australian Open so far. And I managed to keep enough mental capacity to write some stuff as well, which I couldn't do last year, which was nice.
Yeah, I was debating this the other day, like what is better, the first week of a major or the second week of a major? And I came to the conclusion that it was the second week, just because the first week there's so much chaos and you don't have enough devices, you don't have enough attention span to watch every single thing. And it's like 75% of the draw is out by the third round. And then you can really, because what I like to do is I really like to watch one match and just deeply analyze it, like how we did here. And I feel like that is so much better for coverage, for in-depth analysis and things that we like to do here on this podcast. And it just made me think that's why I just love the second week of these majors more now, because you can really just focus on 1 or 2, 3 matches of the day and just have that be like one of the turning points. Like,
I totally agree, but I think with the caveat that the finals are good, because I feel like if the finals are not good, then the first week can be better. Like I'm imagining if what
I'll say from the third round onwards.
That works. Yes, I agree with that, because I'm trying to imagine if the men's final was a dud, and I think if it was, that puts a very different complexion on the end of the tournament. But yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun. We got a lot of good tennis.
It has. And let's just hope we keep getting more 5-setters, because it just proves that point home again and again and again. That
it's really good.
Give us all the 5-setters.
We've had 6 of the last 10 majors be 5-setters in over 4 hours. And it's like, may this trend continue, because tennis wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope everybody at home listening to this podcast like this podcast and enjoyed also the Australian Open. We'll not take a break from tennis, but like obviously our episodes are probably going to be less I wouldn't say interesting, just because it's probably going to be like not a lot of things happening, but Dubai is around the corner, and normally that gives in a lot of good matches.
The return of Novak as well.
Exactly. So we're going to probably like switch a little bit of our focus to like other players who are up and coming, which is kind of refreshing than just talking about Nadal, Djokovic all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see who all emerges out of this golden swing on the clay, and we'll see if that has any impact for Roland Garros. And
absolutely,
hopefully, Team can come back healthy.
Del Potro is coming back.
Yes, really excited for that.
There's going to be a lot of stories.
Be sure to check out Popcorn Tennis. Andre just wrote a fire piece about crowd noise. And we covered a bunch of Australian Open stuff, pieces upon pieces there. So let us know what you think.
All right. So thanks for listening. I am at Rolandberg Andre. Vansh is at Vansh Owen is at Tennis Nation. And we are at Tennis and Bagels, and Popcorn Tennis at Popcorn Tennis 1, I think.
Close enough.
What is it?
We're working on getting a better handle. Popcorn _Tennis 1.
Okay, _Tennis 1. Yeah. All right. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.